So are you asking me about Coach Banks' answer, or are you asking me a question?
I'm asking you a question on how do you feel.
What is the question?
The question is, are you approaching it like it's any other game, or are you talking about it being to a different magnitude?
Well, the game itself is a game. We focus on our preparation and what we need to do. Naturally, Bryant-Denny Stadium is a heck of an environment. They do a tremendous job at Alabama with their game day, the electricity in the stadium. But the key to the drill is focus on what we need to do. And we can't get caught up thinking we're going to play all 17 teams that Coach Saban's had the last 17 years. And the players and the coaches on. We're playing the 2023 Alabama football team, which is very good. And they're very well coached. It's going to be a great environment for college football. All that being said, we need to focus on what we need to do.
Hey, what's going on? It's Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. There's a podcast format as we're coming to you week 2 of the college football season. Alabama versus Texas. Bryant-Denny Stadium, 6 p.m. TV is ESPN. If you missed it earlier this summer, and what that was in reference to was a comment made by Jeff Banks, who's a former tight ends coach at Alabama, and then he's now the tight ends coach at Texas, followed Steve Sarkisian when Sarkisian got the head job. Earlier this year, Jeff Banks was quoted as saying this: "We're just going to play another road game," Banks said, and that was per Anwar Richardson of Orange Bloods. "Just as hard as in Kansas and in Iowa State as it's going to be in Tuscaloosa. It's just bigger and more people." Well, the magnitude of the game is a lot larger than Kansas and Iowa State. And I think that is what Anwar was asking Coach, is this game is the college football Super Bowl of week 2. Everybody has their eyes towards Texas and Alabama. I get it. Texas doesn't have the marquee wins as of late as the Crimson Tide. With that said, the brand is so large. And this game would mean so much to Texas fans, alumni, students, everybody in the state, if they were able to beat Alabama. Last year, the game was down to 1 point, with Will Reichard hitting a field goal to win the game. Now, also on Monday, Coach Sarkisian was asked if last year's game against Alabama was a measuring stick of how far this program has come under Sarkisian's leadership. Here's what Sarkisian had to say.
I mean, I think so. You know, we knew the type of team that they have at Alabama. I know the players that they've recruited. I know the coaching that they have. And so for us to be able to go toe-to-toe with them a year ago, I think in the end, I'm not big on moral victories, but I do think for some of the guys on our team, it was like, okay, continue to believe in what we're doing. It's going to work, and we're getting there, and we're getting closer. So to some degree, yes, I agree with that.
Now, last week, as you know, Texas was able to defeat Rice by a score of 37-10. In speaking with Jeff Ketchum of Orange Bloods and getting some feedback from other Texas Longhorns fans during the last couple of days, Quinn Ewers, who's our quarterback, he struggled with the deep ball. Does the past dictate the future? Not necessarily, but he was 19 of 30 for 3 touchdowns. He had a longest pass of 44 yards, and his receivers came through. Xavier Worthy, 7 receptions for 90 yards. Jordan Whittington had 4 receptions for 47 yards. Jatavion Sanders had 2 receptions for 44. That was that 44-yard run and catch from Sanders. That was the long touchdown. This team is very dangerous, and a lot stems from the quarterback play. Coach Sarkisian was asked about Quinn Ewers on Monday's press conference. Here's Sarkisian with that soundbite.
I think there's just a level of confidence in Quinn that's different. A year ago, he's making his second career start and probably still learning our offense, quite frankly, and the nuances of our offense. I think there's a level of confidence in him this year around and focused in on, how does he operate plays in the system in a way to help the other guys, and not because he's got a pretty firm grasp of what he's doing. But to me, the biggest thing showed up Saturday with just the maturity, the way he rebounded coming out of halftime after a couple frustrating things. I know the quarterback takes a lot of the brunt of when things aren't just clicking smoothly on offense, but we blew some protections that weren't on him, and he took some unnecessary hits and sacks that weren't on him. We didn't run a couple routes very well, especially on a couple deep balls when you go back and watch the tape, and how we ran them. And then the throw looks errant, but quite frankly, the route wasn't exactly where it was supposed to be either. And so, but that's the life you live as a quarterback, right? You assume the blame, right? And then you give the praise when it's good. And so, but for Quinn, that didn't rattle him. We got back at halftime, we got things kind of rectified, and came out and played a really clean first 3 drives there in the second half. So I think that he's in a good space and ready to go this week.
That's Steve Sarkisian talking about his quarterback, Quinn Ewers, going into this Week 2 matchup against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, on Monday, Nick Saban held his press conference, which I'm sure you guys watched right here on our Bama Football YouTube channel. Coach Saban provided some marquee injury updates. I know a lot of people have been asking about Malachi Moore and Jalen Key. Each of those guys plays in the secondary, and Coach Saban said those guys were day-to-day. Here's that soundbite. But Coach Saban also mentioned that Devontae Smith is still out. So going into this game, that could theoretically be 3 starters on the secondary that would potentially be out of this game. Now, Coach Saban didn't say that those guys would be out. He said that, here's that soundbite of Coach Saban talking about the injury update going into Week 2.
Can you update us on Malachi Moore and Jalen Key, who you mentioned Saturday?
They're both day-to-day, so it's probably too early to tell what their circumstance will be. Probably be a couple days and we figure it out. But I don't think either guy has long-term issues, but it'll be interesting to see how they progress this week.
Up here, Charlie.
Another quick one, Emmanuel Henderson. You have an update on him?
He has a hip injury. It's going to probably be a few more weeks before he gets back into the swing of things, but hard to know exactly when. They'll do some rechecks on him here next week or two, and he was having a great fall camp, doing a great job on special teams, made a lot of progress as a receiver, so we'd love to get him back.
Now, with that said, Coach Saban was also asked about Earl Little, Kristian Story, some of that too deep in the secondary. Here's Coach Saban's response to that on Monday.
2-part question. What did you see from players like Kristian Story, Earl Little, Trey Amos when they were able to step in on Saturday? And then as far as the communication in the secondary, what did you see on tape and how important will that be against Texas on Saturday?
I think it's really important all the time, and it's one thing that we're constantly harping on is to get good communication. And, specifically about the players that you ask about, some of them played really well. Some of them have things that they could improve on, and sort of didn't play with the poise that you need to play with, maybe a little anxiety first game, whatever. But we need all those guys to continue to develop and play well, because, right now Smitty's already down and you got 2 other guys that are, not able to practice at least today, maybe someday in the near future. So it's important that we develop young players and that these guys have a chance to develop confidence, which I think just the fact that they got to play in the game should help them to some degree see what they need to improve on, as well as build on the things that they did well.
I think going into this game, the linebackers have to come with it. I'm talking about Dallas Turner, Chris Broswell, who I thought played a fantastic game. Same thing with Q Robinson. I was talking about him all fall camp, and I was glad to see that momentum transition into an actual game. I love his length. Really good athleticism. I think those guys are going to play a pivotal role. And honestly, I feel that if Alabama's pass rush can get to Quinn Ewers, that Alabama wins this football game. I think it honestly comes down to that. With that said, Alabama's interior linebackers also have to step up. Deontay Lawson did just that. This guy is playing at a very high level. Here's Coach Saban talking about Deontay Lawson following the game against Middle in Week 1.
Yeah, well, he's a bright guy. He's a signal caller. Didn't disappoint us at all, in the game on Saturday, and we were getting a lot of multiples and a lot of different things. But he did a good job. He had a good game. He played well. He was productive. So, I think it's important that we keep, getting that kind of performance because, linebacker is such an important position in setting the front, stopping the run, but also getting out on run pass and being able to match the patterns the way you need to. And he's certainly a bright guy and has done that extremely well.
Now, Jalen Milroe has been a fantastic interview. Had the first opportunity of this season to speak to him following his amazing performance against Middle, and he was actually named the co-SEC Offensive Player of the Week. Did a fantastic job distributing the football, and had another opportunity to speak to him on Monday. Alabama has what they call the LANK mentality. Here is Jalen Milroe explaining exactly what that means.
Let a naysayer know. I think it was something we built throughout the offseason, and we came as one unit to try to think of something, a motto that would push our team. There's a lot of doubt that took place throughout the offseason, and there's a lot of things that, took place. And so that was one thing. We came together as one group, one unit, to try to think of a motto. So that's one of our mottos this year.
I think a lot of us were highly critical of the Alabama wide receivers during fall camp, even during the summertime. We wanted to see a high level of play from the wide receivers. And I think when you look to the wide receivers and how they did perform in week one, I thought they did quite well, honestly. And I think that, number one, we wanted to see them catch the football. I know it sounds simple, but they did catch the football. Who has very sticky hands is Kobe Prentice. My goodness. I mean, that guy was, you put on number 6 and I guess you could catch anything, right? After the great Devontae Smith. But looking at the wide receiver stats collectively, Isaiah Bond, 5 receptions, 76 yards with a touchdown. Jermaine Burton, 3 receptions, 62 yards and a score. Amari Niblack, who's a tight end / wide receiver. Yeah, there I said it. I think we're also going to start labeling him as one of the rideouts, right? 2 receptions, 49 yards with a score. Kobe Prentice, 3 receptions for 20 yards. On Monday, Jalen Milroe was asked about the wide receivers, and Isaiah Bond had that play where he caught the football and then he lowered his shoulder, put it into the defender. I like that mentality. Here's what Milroe had to say about the wide receivers on Monday.
So it all came through our offseason grind. I think they're hungry. They came together as one unit. That's the key to any team, just coming together as one heartbeat. They come together hungry. Every play, we're talking in between series. And then another thing that took place, too, is that we're having fun. That's the one thing that, when you approach the field, you try to have as much fun as possible, but also being prepared. And so preparation throughout the week has allowed any success on any Saturday.
Milroe's a fantastic interview, I'm telling you. Very sharp, high IQ, answers the questions with humility and confidence. And I think one of the things that people wanted to see with Milroe's game this season, after a small sample size last season, was how does he stay in the pocket when he does have protection? We all know he has the ability to be the most dynamic runner on the field. But, when he does have protection, what does it look like? And can he throw the deep ball? Here's what Milroe had to say when asked about pocket presence.
On Saturday, you stood in the pocket a few times and showed a lot of patience. I think you took a pretty good lick on a touchdown pass. How do you approach knowing when to sit in the pocket and be patient versus when to bust it out and do your thing?
So I think it all comes down to trust. I trust the guys that are in front of me, that's protecting me every single day throughout the week. And then I know those guys are just pushing to be the best version of themselves every day. Our goal this year as a unit is just be the best version of ourselves each and every day. We approach practice, a game, no matter what it is. And so with throwing the ball at the quarterback position, it comes with trust, and I trust the offensive line that's in front of me.
What you guys think about the offensive line play? Thought they did great in pass pro, but in terms of helping get a strong ground game going, it seemed like it was a little bit lackluster. And I want to see a larger sample size of the offensive line. And I said this during my Sunday night call-in show. It felt at times that the offensive line looked a little bit slow. I don't know. Did you guys notice that? Let me know what you think about the offensive line play inside the comment box. I know they're the biggest offensive line and they're bigger than NFL teams by size, but sometimes, size doesn't always translate to athleticism. I'm not discounting what they did, but, I want to get some feedback in a larger sample size as we talk about the offensive line. Now, Jalen Milroe from Texas was recruited by Texas, was asked if he's a fan of Vince Young, who was an incredible quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. Here's Jalen Milroe with that soundbite.
So, Vince Young is someone I did watch. As far as his highlights, and then my family loved Vince Young. So growing up, I was a Vince Young fan. He was my first jersey that I bought, and I love Vince Young.
We also had an opportunity to hear from Terrion Arnold, one of Alabama's very dynamic cover corners on Monday. He was asked about this game, the magnitude, the excitement. You got College Game Day coming in. You got Pat McAfee and his crew coming in. Everybody's coming to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for this game. Here's Terrion Arnold when asked about the magnitude and the excitement coming into Tuscaloosa.
I know every game's exciting, but obviously this one, College Game Day here. What's the excitement level in the locker room right now? I know this is why you come to Alabama, right?
Ultimately, like I would say, it's just another game. Obviously, we're keeping our poise. We have a great matchup in Texas. They're a very great team. It's going to be a great atmosphere, but that's why you come to Alabama. Every game is the same. No one's above anybody, so we're going to treat it just like another game. And I feel like with us preparing and stuff, going into my third year, I feel very, very comfortable. And with Sark, man, he's a genius, obviously.
Communication with more confidence do you feel?
Too.
Jared, how much more confidence do you feel playing corner after having experience? And then specifically, how much more confident are you in communication with the adjustments that need to be made with the Texas offense? More confidence do you...
The atmosphere, like it was a very difficult atmosphere, so we need our fans to come in and make it a difficult atmosphere for them too.
Terrion Arnold, now an experienced player at Alabama at the corner position, was asked about how he feels now that he's somewhat of a veteran and he's had plenty of game experience, and talked about the communication that he has kind of with his secondary going into this matchup against Texas, who clearly has an arsenal of weapons.
Jared, how much more confidence do you feel playing corner after having experience? And then specifically, how much more confident are you in communication with the adjustments that need to be made with the Texas offense?
Going into my third year, I feel very, very comfortable. And with Sark, man, he's a genius. Obviously, he's been here, and he knows our defense very well, so we have to do a good job of communicating. And I feel like with my teammates, building a bond during the offseason and really just growing and knowing how they are, like we do a better job of communicating. So I feel like it's very easy now.
Let's look at the college football top 25 from week 1. I'm going to get your take inside the comment box. What stood out? I mean, clearly we all watched Colorado and Coach Prime put it on TCU. One thing that certainly jumped out to me when watching Colorado beat TCU 45-42 was the quarterback play by Shadori Sanders, Deion's son. He's 38 of 47, school record 510 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was a tremendous performance. And then you also have, Travis Hunter playing both ways. He had 11 receptions for 119 yards, did drop a touchdown. 1 touchdown was called out of bounds. Kid's an absolute baller, and even had an interception on the defensive side with 3 tackles. Coach Prime and that squad that he has, they have a lot of momentum. And kind of like Alabama's mentality, let the naysayers know. I think Colorado's kind of feeling that as well. They were a 17-point underdog going into that game to Fort Worth, and they come out on top 45-42. I think around the top 25 other items that caught my attention, probably Notre Dame's continued high level of play, but then again, they played Navy and Tennessee State. With that said, I do have respect for quarterback Sam Hartman. Is it safe to drink the Notre Dame Kool-Aid? I'm going to say not yet. Notre Dame seems to be one of those teams every single year that the national media wants to be really good, but there's always those particular games or when they get to a high-profile game that they just don't perform at the highest level. I do like what they have going on early on in the season, but I just, I'm staying away from that for right now. I think one of the additional marquee games in the top 25 was Florida State downing LSU 45-24. Look, is it safe to drink the Florida State Kool-Aid? Not yet. This team has a history of winning some interesting games and then losing some interesting games as well. I think Mike Norvell has done a fantastic job rebuilding Florida State. They're clearly headed the right direction. That's a big game to win on national TV on Sunday night and beating number 5 LSU. With that said, I think Florida State, and like all these other teams, they need to continue to do it on a consistent basis. Teams like Florida State and Notre Dame seem to struggle with teams that are less caliber from time to time. And that's, in the past doesn't dictate the future, but that's kind of why I'm staying away from that. Oh, this is the team that can, be a Final Four team in the end. I need to see more of it, but they did dominate LSU. Brian Kelly, in the post game, he was kind of going at his players, and I get it. I mean, they thought they were better than what they were. It was a game that they don't feel good about losing, clearly, but that's not the last time we're going to hear about LSU. Duke beats Clemson on Monday night 28-7. Clemson, number 9 in the country. Everyone's talking about that game, and rightfully so. I mean, I think even, was it Feinbaum that said Clemson's dynasty is over under Dabo? It ended a little bit ago. I mean, that's the thing. The teams from the ACC, they cannot continue this high level of success for multiple years like other SEC teams. It's just a different level of competition, in my opinion. And look, Duke beating Clemson, it's not that surprising to me. I get it, like the fans rush the field and good for Duke and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily look at Clemson as a threat. If they're ever to come to Tuscaloosa or they're going to play a big SEC team, like I'm taking the SEC team all day. All right, let's look at the top 25 and some of the games that are taking place this week in week 2. You have Ball State at number 1, Georgia. Georgia favored by nearly 42 points in that game. Number 13, Notre Dame is an 8-point favorite against NC State. You have SMU taking on number 20, Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 17. Oregon, who posted up, 81 points last week, take on Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. That's an interesting game to watch. Number 14, Utah, who embarrassed Florida, just a 6-point favorite against Baylor. Number 25, Iowa, 4-point favorite against in-state rival Iowa State. You also have Auburn, who's a nearly touchdown favorite, taking on Cal up in Berkeley. And number 19, Wisconsin, 4.5-point favorite over Washington State. UCLA, 13-point favorite against San Diego State. And then Oklahoma State, 3-point favorite against Arizona State. And then right here in beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Crimson Tide favored by 6.5 against the Texas Longhorns. Mentioned a couple other games. Nebraska at Colorado. Colorado now a 2.5-point favorite. Coach Prime doing his thing. Boulder's going to be lit. UNLV taking on Michigan. Michigan, 35-point favorite. Texas A&M taking on Miami. Aggies only a 5-point favorite. And then Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, along with DC Pete Golding, taking on Tulane, where Ole Miss is just a 6-point favorite against the Green Wave. And as mentioned, Alabama and Texas, the college football game of the week. We will have tons of coverage all this week. As you know, hit the bell, like, subscribe. We're coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. My name is Kyle Henderson. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys more than you know. One more time. From beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this is week 2 of the college football season. My name is Kyle Henderson. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys more than you know.